Yeah. Know what it is? Your boy DL47 back for another special edition pop-off. Let's go. DL47's Rugby League stats will recount as much Rugby League information as possible. And this time, very special edition indeed. Because right here, we've got a one-off occurrence. Right here, we've got the only game ever between the two worst ever teams in the history of the Australian Rugby League competition, University and Annandale. Now, Rugby League fans out there who mightn't have heard of University and Annandale, they were two teams who participated in the very early years of the competition. Annandale participating in the years 1910 up to 1920, never once making the finals and getting 3 wooden spoons in 1914, 1918 and in 1920. Whereas University were even worse, participated in the competition 1920 up to 1937, made the finals once only in 1926, where they ended up losing the 1926 final to South 11-5. But every other year, they spent way down the bottom of the ladder, and they picked up a whopping 10 wooden spoons, believe it or not. So, with Annandale participating in the comp 1910 up to 1920, and then University 1920 up to 1937, what that means is 1920, that was the only year that they were both in the competition at the same time, and they played each other once and once only. So the two worst teams ever playing each other once and once only. I think we need to give them a bit of celebration, even though the fact they were far from impressive, both of them. They did at least hang around in the competition for a few years, and they deserve like an effort award, so to speak. Bit of praise for at least trying. So the only time they ever played, 1920 round 9 it was, and it was played at Birchgrove Oval. And for those of you who aren't aware, Birchgrove Oval is the very birthplace of Australian Rugby League. That was the ground where the first games were ever played, round 1908. Obviously still being used up to 1920 and beyond. So they just happened to play each other at Birchgrove Oval, at the very birthplace of Rugby League, which I think is very special. And it was on the 17th of July 1920, so 1920 round 9. The exact date was 17th of July 1920. The referee, his name was Webby Neal. Unusual name, but that was his name, Webby Neal. And eventually, University winning 13 points to 8 over Annandale. Annandale, of course, lost every game in 1920, their last year, before they exited the comp. And for University, a very rare wins, few and far between for them. But eventually, University beating Annandale 13 points to 8. And at the time, tries used to be 3 points. That's why we've got such an unusual scoreline, 13 points to 8. With University, it's 3-point tries, which makes 9. Then 2 goals, which is another 4 points to make 13. And for Annandale, it's just 2 3-point tries, which makes 6 points, and 1 goal, which makes it 8 altogether. University scorers, a player called Frank Gywnne got 1 try and 1 goal. Alban McKillop got the other goal. Charlie Peebles got a try, and Jim Flattery. They were the scorers for University. And for Annandale, Tom McGuinness getting 1 try and 1 goal, and a player called G. Jolly getting the other try. So there you go. The only time ever the two worst teams ever played each other, 1920 round 9, on Saturday, the 17th of July at Birchgrove Oval, University defeating Annandale 13 points to 8. Your boy DL47.